Hello, everybody. I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Sector C series and the Blood Angel series. And today I am very excited because I have Faith Marlow here with me. She is a USA Today best-selling author of dark fantasy paranormal horror with Vamptasy Publishing, which is an imprint of CHBB Publishing. Her stories stir emotions and explore the thin veil between human and the inhuman. Dark yet inviting and familiar, Faith seeks to deliver chills with a sense of class and sometimes a bit of heat. With each story, she hopes to build exposure for fellow women authors and artists who create horror, which is amazing. All right, so tell me just a little bit more about you and the types of stories that you write.
Well, I guess in general, I live with my husband, Scotty, and our son part of the time when he's not in school, in Oak Ridge. We live in Tennessee, so the secret city. So that's an interesting place to delve into the history of. But I guess from a writing standpoint, I've been writing since I was in the 5th grade.
Wow. Okay.
We started out with a teacher who was like teaching us poetry, reading us Robert Frost and then getting us to make our own little poems and things, and just giving us that idea of you can do this too. That's open for you now. It doesn't have to be someone who's passed on or has a famous name, and that idea stuck with me. And going with that, I've always been interested in like stories like vampires and things, which I was terrified of them when I was a child, and then that became more of a fascination with what that represents and what that says about us. And I think that is at the heart of a lot of what I write, is that the only reason we have monsters or we have horror or dark fantasy type stories, it's looking at something about us, and that's a comfortable way to deal with it. That's a safe way to explore, things that scare us or things that, uncertainties and
things that are different.
Yes, and you get that rush of overcoming this obstacle or this fear, and that provides a safe way of doing that instead of, like other avenues that might be more dangerous, hobbies and activities and things that are riskier or, adrenaline rush type things. You can watch a horror movie or read a novel and you get a little bit of that kick.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you a full-time writer or do you have another job?
I have another job. I have a day job. I am IT tech support during the day, so it's like I'm very two different sides of the coin type of thing, which kind of like my characters. A lot of the characters that I write too, they're, by most characterizations, you'd consider them a monster, but, you find out that they have very human qualities or flaws even, but that humanity is present still.
So with that said, what is your latest release and what type of flaws or characters can we find in that book?
Well, my latest one that's available right now is the 3rd part of my series, the V. and Mrs. Dracula series, which is the story of, it starts with the 3 brides of Dracula.
Okay.
Because they're always there, they're always present, but nobody really knows anything about them. So I wanted them to have a story. So I wanted to read their story, and I couldn't find their story. So I made my version, and it progressed into the 2nd one, being Dracula's widow, which carries on with the main character from the first, Valeria, the first bride. And part 3 is a continuation of that story, and it's up into the 1920s now, and they're in New York City during the Roaring '20s. So
wow.
And
okay.
It reflects like how the Depression was coming and how there was this beautiful time of happiness and parties and, and they had that life too. And then the disaster of the 30s that come in, and how that was lost and fake. You know, it wasn't what they thought it to be. And the analogies between the vampires and the speakeasies and the prohibition, and how dangerous it could be to get a drink in the 1920s in New York City. So
tell me, there are a lot of different ways that authors write vampires. You've got everything from the traditional Dracula and the Anne Rice stories to the not so traditional versions of, like the Twilight vampires that sparkle in the sun. So what are your vampires like? Are they actual monsters? You said that they have a human quality, but on what scale are, that traditional monster to the more human-esque? Where would you put your vampires?
I would say similar. I guess it depends on the character. The way I characterize Vlad Dracula in the first book, he is very much the self-serving monster. He's very much the gaslighting, abusive partner, spouse. So even though he is a monster, that's still there, and Valeria even says it once, she finds out, he was a monster before he was turned into a vampire. Okay. And kind of what you are before kind of gets exaggerated by what you become later.
Yeah.
So I think very much, I think very more along the lines of like the Anne Rice type of introspective vampire. Because I tried to be as respectful to the Bram Stoker's material as possible, while being my own story.
Okay.
So.
Now, how long does it typically take you to go from concept to publication with your books?
That can be a huge distance. Like, B and Mrs. Dracula come together pretty quickly for me. Okay. But, there's a wealth of background and studying and research that I did for that. Being Dracula's Widow, the second part, it went through a little faster because I knew exactly where I was going, what I wanted to do. The third part nearly whipped me because there was times I wanted to just throw in the towel and just say, I'm done. Because it took, from start to finish, it took about 7 years to get that book the way I wanted it. And, of course, have also, working full time, having a family and things like that, cuts into, and I won't say cuts into, but it affects how much time you can dedicate.
Absolutely.
And, and it had to be the way I wanted it, and I have a friend, Rue Volley, who actually does the covers for all of my books. She's the graphic artist, along with being an author at my publishing company. She said, it's done when it's done. The book's, it's done when it's done. And there's not, you can rush it and not be happy with it, or
you can take the time it needs and be happy with it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And when this one was done, I was like, okay, this is, and I think it's just a maturity level for me too. It's like, I have matured in what I do so much from when I started it to when I finished it. It's like, I wasn't ready for this story yet. Yeah. And it took that time of writing other stories in between to get to where I needed to be.
For this one to be able to done.
Yeah, to have that foresight to see, I know where I'm at, I know where I want to go, now how do I get them there?
Yeah.
And it just took me, I think, evolving as a writer to get to be able to flesh that out for them.
Yeah. Now, speaking of those other stories you wrote in between, how many published novels or how many published stories do you have?
Currently, I have the 3 Me and Mrs. Dracula stories. I have a book that's called The Nightmare Hunters. It's kind of it's right now waiting for a second part, but it's kind of one that's kind of got pushed back, and I haven't gotten to it yet. But it is available. Couples Therapy. It is a kind of like a psychological horror.
Oh.
The only story I have that is not paranormal in any way.
Okay.
So, but I have it. It's a standalone story. So, I have several short story anthologies that I'm in,
Okay.
and currently, right now, preparing to launch my new series, and it's coming out. Well, it's available for pre-order right now. So the book is at 99 cents for the pre-order, but it is the story of Medusa.
Ooh.
And the series is called Scorned Women, and it's me just going through and finding these characters who I'm like, you know what, you deserve a better shot. You know this just doesn't end right for you.
Right.
Let's redo this. And for me it was just natural that Medusa had to be.
So she's your first one in the Scorned Women.
Yes.
Who else can we expect to come out in that series?
That's what I've been thinking about. I'm like, well, I mean, if I just wanted to keep it within mythology, I could find like, you can find those just like hand over fist, just people who've just been done wrong in mythology. So I haven't decided exactly. I've been looking at Cersei a little bit. She's
Okay.
been, really looking at Lilith, which is not mythology, but I'm really interested in her because she kind of got a bad rap. And I don't know. I'm just just going to explore through and see. One that I'm interested to see if there's enough material to pursue it would be the Bride of Frankenstein. And it kind of goes with my storyline, the Mrs.
Yep.
Idea. It's like, she didn't ask for this, and another one of those side characters who's mentioned for a moment and then kind of brushed off as a collateral damage of the story. Yes. And so I'm really interested in that. So that might be my next project, is to dive into Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and see how much of it is her, how much of it is our pop culture, like what we've has been created over the years. And because you see that in spades with Dracula.
Yes.
And there's so many, and I love all the old horror movies of Brides of Dracula, Daughter of Dracula, just all the classic Hollywood movies,
renditions of it. Yeah.
Yes, I love all that. The look and the the feel of those old movies, and I hope, like with my stories, like about the Brides of Dracula and Medusa and things, I hope that it has a little bit of that feel to it, that you're going back into those overlooked characters with a modern twist,
So you do clearly a lot of research with the stories that you write.
Yes.
What does your writing process look like? Clearly you do a lot of research, like I said. So are you a plotter? I mean, do you sit down and plot everything, plan it, do all your research before you start writing? Or do you dive right in and start writing and then research as necessary?
A little of both. Sometimes I will plot them out completely. Like, this is where I want to be. Chapter 5, I want to have this person here, and we're going to say this, and sometimes it's like, we'll see when we get there. Surprise myself, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that was, like, with being Mrs. Dracula, I knew. Because I had the Bram Stoker's novel, was the end of it, was where I ultimately wanted to end.
Okay.
With my characters. And that was kind of like with the story of Medusa, too. It's like, unfortunately, we all kind of know how that ends.
Right.
But this was a person who had a life before.
Yeah.
And that life is not explored at all, from what I could find anyway. Very little is said about who this person was before this horrible thing happened to her. And so that's where I'm going at with that story. Is like, we know how she died, but how did she live?
Right.
And that was the purpose of that story, was to give her a life. So she, known for something more than the horrible things that happened to her.
Right. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you are a USA Today best-selling author.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Which series or which book or what made you a best-selling author? And how has that helped your career as an author?
That was a collaborative event. There was an anthology series. I mean, I shouldn't say anthology series. There's an anthology collection that came out, and there was a group of, I'd say, 20 authors, I would think, and it was all a group effort with that we were able to get to that level of,
Notoriety.
I guess, success, I guess is what you would say, but that we were able to obtain that rank, and so it was definitely it was an experience to see that happen, and to see that book on the USA Today website, and like, I'm in that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, was that short stories then?
It was actually a collection of full-size novels.
Oh, wow.
The book right now, I co-wrote the book with my friend Lily Lucchese.
Okay.
And it's currently, our book was called Soul Syndicate. It was an urban fantasy.
Okay.
It is currently not available on Amazon, but it planned to be re-released again soon.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part about being an author?
For me, aside from just making the time to do it,
Yeah.
because you have to deliberately set that time apart and be like, this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Aside from the time factor, for me, it's just promotional and just trying to be that voice in the sea of people that's also doing what they love.
Right.
And trying to find ways to engage with an audience, or find new readers, or try to think of what can I write that I will enjoy writing that will also appeal to people and get their attention and things. So
yeah.
I think the writing almost in ways can be the easy part, because that's what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of, you do your job, you love your job, you never work a day. Well, that's true to a point.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of work that goes with it that you might not love.
Yeah.
And but that's just part of it.
So that marketing aspect, which I think a lot of our authors do find to be the hardest part, what have you found that works to market yourself as an author and to market your stories?
Probably one of them, and as difficult as that is to come by, one of the best things that I have found is just, if you do engage with that one person and that person says, hey, you need to check this person out, you need to check this book out, I really liked it, and that organic
word of mouth type feedback. Yeah.
And I've also found that like email newsletter type swaps and things like that can be pretty beneficial too, and help you get, I'll put your books in my newsletter, you put my books in your newsletter, and we'll kind of cross-pollinate,
Yes.
And which I guess it's more of like an electronic word of mouth type of thing. So
okay. Now you are traditionally published through Vamptasy.
Mm-hmm.
What made you go traditional versus indie? And would you do it again?
I would do it again, because I just, knowing that there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
I need that person in my corner saying, yeah, that's great, maybe tweak that a little bit, or that cover, that's a good idea, but what about this? You know what I mean? The blurb that you wrote, that sounds good, but what about if we tweak it a little bit? And to have that objective, because our books are almost like children.
Oh, yeah.
They're the cutest.
Yeah.
They're the smartest. They're the cutest. They're and And so we need that objective person that to be able to say, that's good, but
But it could be better.
It could be better. And
Yeah.
why don't you have you considered this?
Yeah.
And to have that support like that has been, because I'm not a graphics designer. I don't know how to make covers. I don't know how to format the insides of my books to make them look good, Yeah. I definitely need an editor because.
Oh, amen. Yes.
I mean, yes. And that's things that when I was self-published for a year.
Okay.
And it was just, from myself, I, was taken advantage of more than one occasion, by people claiming to be good editors that weren't, people claiming to be graphic designers that weren't. And you don't find that out until you've already paid in the money, and to not have to worry about that is, to me, and I mean, it is something of an accomplishment in of itself, that I can say that's
you're traditionally.
That's my publisher. That's who I'm with, and to have that backing, that family type backing of my colleagues too, supporting and helping.
So how long did it take you to go from submission to actually having a publisher that you were working with?
I kind of went around it a little differently because instead of submitting, like I said, at the time, my Being Mrs. Dracula was self-published.
Okay.
And I was wanting to, I'd always wanted to have a publisher. I'm like, well, I don't know who's good. I don't know, totally out in left field with nobody to turn to.
Yeah.
And I started picking up on little bits and pieces, and people said, oh, a lady that I knew that I had made friends with on Goodreads, she's like, check these guys out. And it just so happened that they had a short story anthology for submissions going up for that.
Okay.
I'm like, well, let's see. I'll submit a short story and see if they like that. And then if they like that, I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? I've got more if you're interested.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that they were. So
so you took that book off the market and then republished it with them.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very cool. Well, do you have anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like our viewers to know about you or your work?
I think as far as like my work goes, just I guess maybe to speak to who I think might be interested in it, of course, definitely anybody like the monster type, the old monster movies, the old, because that's where my heart is with those sorts of characters and stories. I think that they might find something interesting with what I do. I have romantic elements, but I don't think that they're necessarily considered like a traditional like paranormal romance or something like that. But definitely there's a love story element. And they're very, and I hope, at least for myself, and I've had people tell me that they are empowering type stories, and that they're heartfelt type stories. And one reader who I adore, she told me once, she said, "You give monsters a heart."
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like, whoa, thank you. So, but I think that stories definitely makes you look at things a little differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the idea of not accepting things at face value, and definitely empowering type stories, and in inclusive stories too. I try to be very inclusive and respectful with that as well. But I think I have a pretty wide range of stuff out there right now, and hopefully something that would pique the interest and lead to other things. So.
Okay. Well, I will definitely have links in the description below for anybody to click on and find your books, because I'm all about sharing and making sure that people can get in touch with you, get in touch with your books, and get them. So if you are watching this, you need to order her books. Check out the link below.
Thank you.
All right. So a question that I hate answering, which is why I will ask it to you.
That's right.
Yes. Which of your books is your favorite?
Now, see, that one's not hard for me. That one,
good.
It would be being Mrs. Dracula for me.
Okay.
But it was published on my birthday, so that tells you kind of it is my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I adore that story and those characters because I've been with them for so many years at this point that they do become almost real to you. You know what I mean? And
oh yeah, I do. I know.
Right, exactly. You understand how that is. It's like you have little conversations with them in your head. You know them better than they know themselves.
Yep.
And so it would definitely be my favorite. Like I said, it's my heart. That series is very dear to me. And close second to that would probably be Medusa that's coming out.
Oh, very cool.
I got the idea for that story, and the whole story was written and rewritten and ready for an editor in about 2.5 months.
Wow.
So I was literally like, that's why I said like linebacker, like ran over by this story and it was like, write this right now. You know?
That's awesome. That's awesome when the words just start flowing and they come out and you just can't stop writing. I think that is one of the best feelings in the world. That's awesome.
Yes, definitely.
And through the years, I mean, you've been writing for a really long time. So from that first one to Medusa, I mean, you've probably also grown as an author too.
Oh, definitely.
To the point where your writing style has changed and you probably can look at that, your writing in two different ways. Of this is the beginning and this is current.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been, I would like to think that my style's matured, that with the years and just as you learn with just human experiences and just life in general, you mature as a person, so your stories mature with you.
And your characters.
And the characters and your judgment or lack of judgment can be imparted into these characters and you can take them on trials and adventures that you don't want to face yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to make you.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I like to end all of my interviews with the James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio 10 questions. So if you've seen it, yes, have you ever seen it? Okay. So just answer as quickly as you can. You don't need to think these things through. There are no wrong answers.
Okay.
Just what pops into your mind. All right?
Okay.
So question 1, what is your favorite word?
Word. Oh, gosh. That is a good one. I can't even think. I'm like blanked out. First one.
I should have a buzzer. Bzzz.
Right.
Time's up. Come on.
Yeah,
what favorite word? You're going to pass?
Curiosity.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
What is your least favorite word?
Rejection.
Yeah, that's a good one. What turns you on?
Imagination.
And what turns you off?
Closed-minded.
What sound or noise do you love?
My cat purring.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Hearing people complaining to their waiters and waitresses in a restaurant.
Okay.
Being nice to people. Yes.
All right. What is your favorite curse word?
The F-bomb, probably.
The F-bomb. Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, anything. Geologist.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
What profession would you not like to do?
Farmer. I'm not built for that. Respect it, but I'm not built for that.
I hear you. All right, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I didn't expect to see you here. You made it.
Surprise!
Right?
That's awesome.
Hopefully it's not. I read your books. Like, you go the other way.
No, hey, if he read your books and you're still there, then you did good, right?
That's exactly right.
You did good.
That's right.
All right. Well, that is the end of the interview. Thank you so much for joining me and doing this socially distanced interview during this very strange time of COVID.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you got to come join me. I hope that everybody that watches this purchases your books and you just skyrocket.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me too. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, it was fun. It was great to
Yes.
talk with you, and it was good to meet you.
Right. Yes. Thank you. We had a couple of hiccups getting here, but
That's right.
we
That's
made
okay.
it, and that's the main thing.
That's okay. We did it. It's through.
That's right.
We're done.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out her books. The link is down below. And until the next interview, I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.